So our hot take for this week is Georgia has surpassed Bama and is the college football new gold standard. What are your thoughts on that, Chris?
Yes. I think it's without a doubt. The reason why I'm saying this is I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think, Georgia, with the back-to-back there, if they would have like won one, not won one, and then won one again, I'd say no. But the back-to-back thing here to me is huge. I think they're only the 7th team ever to do so. I think since like the 1930s. That's impressive. I mean, it really truly is. And I say this because I'm a true Nebraska fan, and we did it back in 94, 95. We didn't win in 96, but then turn around won in 97. We were considered a dynasty then. Bama has been the dynasty the last how many years, and I think you would agree with that. You sprinkle in a little bit of Clemson in there with the Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence in those days. But Georgia overall to me is what they're doing with Kirby Smart, man. He is almost like Nick Saban 2.0. They're not the same people, don't get me wrong. But the way they coach, the way they build those teams, Georgia's pretty much replicated, what Bama has done, on the offensive side of the ball. Definitely on the defensive side of the ball, and that's what I give kudos to Georgia for that. I do. And I just think that Saban now in his age, he's getting up there, eventually he will have to retire. And I am high on Bama this year. I just see Georgia as now like that gold standard. I do. I mean, you look at, I believe they lost a couple years ago when they won their first one. I believe they lost 15 players selected in the draft that next year, if I'm not mistaken, still reloaded last year and still came out there and won a national title. And that to me is like, okay, that's not just returning, every single person, a majority of people that you won the first year to your second year, like kind of like what Nebraska kind of did that 94 to 95. You know what I mean? It pretty much kept a lot of those big name pieces. Georgia lost quite a bit to the draft, came back and still won. And that's where it's on Kirby Smart, where I think their coaching staff is just amazing over there. And we could say the same thing about Saban. He's always had great coaches in that program. We all know that. We could name a long list of fucking guys, including Kirby Smart, in that whole program. So, yeah, I guess to me, it's not even close. I mean, this question to me is pretty black and white to me. This year, if Bama would happen to win a national title, I think that would kind of bring that closer again, but we'd have to see, that's hypothetically speaking. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, Christian, you being a Georgia fan as one.
Well, listen, I think you're absolutely right. And we don't agree all the time, I feel like, on this, but I will say this. I think you said it perfect. When we talk about the gold standard, I mean, you look at what some of these Alabama teams have done. They'll win one, then they'll have a year off. Then they'll win 1, 2, then they'll have a year off. Then they'll, and they're always a year or two kind of, they never go really more than a couple of years without kind of getting back and winning it again and just running the table and reloading. And I really think when you stop for a second and you think about this, I think that's exactly where Georgia's at. Sometimes it's about luck, really it is. And really for Georgia, they've got talent in that quarterback room. I mean, it's an embarrassment of riches. Alabama's got some good quarterbacks too, and they've had a lot of good quarterbacks. I think when it comes to Georgia, are they the gold standard in college football? Yes, simply because I like the future. Like you said, Kirby's a younger guy.
He is.
I think this year he doesn't win he doesn't three-peat this year, but I think that drives him to get back into the lab and keep cooking and keep getting that motivation back. It's like a championship fighter. You get a guy in the UFC or you get a guy who's a boxer and they go on a very long, very historic run. Sometimes, they get a little too high on themselves. They get fed, they get paid. Now all of a sudden their motivations are.
Isn't that human nature though? You know what I mean?
Yes, it is. And you got to really, it's hard. It's hard to get up when you've got, not a care in the world. You got a pool in the backyard. You've got the big TV. You've got everything taken care of in life. The grind is not the same as when you're living out of a studio apartment.
Right.
And the bills are coming due. I mean, so there's two different things. And I kind of feel like that's kind of where George is at right now.
No, and I agree. And like I said, I like I said, we don't always agree on this topic, but I'm I'm about 100% sure, on this deal that, like, when you look at Georgia, and they could have had a better hire than Kirby Smart. You guys were not trash before you got him there. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You guys were always like a goddamn game away from being the LSU and cracking the top four, or even Bama those years. You know what I mean? We could go back to all the times that Georgia and Alabama played each other, and it's always been a crazy game. It just always felt like Georgia was on the other end of the stick there, right? And I'm with you, man. With Kirby, man, that guy, I love hearing him talk. I like his motivational speeches. If anybody ever, like, I don't know if you go to like Twitter or YouTube and watch some of his shit before a game, man, it is fucking intense, man. I love it. And like you said, it's human nature to me, though, man. One back-to-back, it's hard not to creep into your head, as a player, as a program, or as a fan base. I remember, hell, I was 11 and 12 when we went back-to-back. I didn't think anybody was going to fucking beat us for 5 years. You know what I mean? And, 96, we lost 2 games, and we lost the 3rd game of the year to Arizona State, like 9-2 or some shit. And, it is. And, what did Nebraska do, though? Went back to the lab. Scott Frost, second year quarterback, run the table again and win another one. Get the 3 out of the 4. So that's a really good analogy there, and it's a really good take.
Yeah. I mean, do you have anything else to add on this? I don't think this was that much of a hot take on my end, by the way.
No, it wasn't. It was a good topic, though. And like I said, I hope people drop some comments in here, and I would like to hear other people's thoughts on this. But obviously, me and you agree on this one, so it's probably not as interesting. But I thought it was a good topic to touch on, though. But other than that, I got nothing else, Christian.